Today's conversation is about using money the right way as a tool to build leverage, options, and long-term freedom. My guest today is someone who I've known since the 6th grade, before business, before titles, before any of this. Bill Lodge is the perfect example of what happens when you grow up, grow wiser, and start playing the long game. This is Tim Rocco, and this is Built Different. I'm here with my second guest of the podcast, Bill Lodge. He is the founder of Kings of Capital, and he's a specialist in non-traditional investor-type loans. How are you, Bill?
Good, brother. How are you?
I'm great. I can't complain.
God's good.
Yeah, everything's good. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do and what your specials are?
I think the specials we do the most versus traditional lenders is we educate our borrowers in how these funds work with your ideas. I think a lot of people think they want to do something, but they don't know the data. And so educating them on how their ideas work with different strategies and techniques and how the money works, because you can have two different people with the same net worth and completely different terms and conditions. So, as a lender, we're funding not just credit. We don't do background, or I should say W-2s and things like
bank statement type loans.
Well, bank statements for the proof of funds.
Correct.
But no tax returns, no W-2s, no pay stubs. And so we're really an asset-based lender. But we also look at your experience. As people know, you're super experienced. So
Yes.
like when I lend you money, I lend you a lot more than I do somebody who has zero experience. So educating them on those terms and conditions and how that affects their outcome based upon the construction. Could be 3 months, how many jobs have you done, right?
Absolutely,
At 30
yeah.
grand takes you a month. 150 grand, 6 months.
I think part of the difference with you versus some of the lenders that I've worked at in the past was how you want to educate and help with the budgeting of the project at all, because especially a lot of new flipper types, or they're not going to have that background or understand how to do the budget and how you want to set it up to pull the money out so you don't find yourself in a bad position.
Great point. You got to understand your ARV first. And then once you understand the project and what it's going to be worth, the future value, right, after repair value, then we help you develop your budget. Is it going to take 30 grand, 60 grand, 100,000 to get there based upon the square footage, and then build out your timeline, because somebody who's getting 10% versus 12% is going to have greater carrying costs, what the taxes, insurance, et cetera, are going to be over that. And then obviously we have the Excel sheet that we share with our customers on Zoom calls so that they can see that final number and that final outcome. Make sure that, when they're working with your realtors, are you guys buying it for the right price?
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
So do the numbers work? Does it make sense to flip? Does it make sense to, buy, renovate, and then hold it as a
Sure.
rental, right? These are all options that, you deal with probably the most, right?
They're the most, but also some sexy stuff that we do that other people don't do is I can refinance a lease option, So like your nice, sexy building there,
Yeah.
you could rent it from the owner, with the option to buy it, do all the work that you've done to it, right? Make capital improvements. And now, I don't know, maybe optioned it for $1 million and now it's worth $2 million with your credit. I'll give you 75, depending on the asset, 70
Absolutely.
to 75% on the cash out. So that's 1.4, 1.5 million. You're only buying it for $1 million, right? So you give the seller his $1 million, and I don't know what you put into that building, 250, 300, right? But now that money flows back to you. Instead of using a fix and hold strategy, we use a lease option, or I could do sub twos, but all those things have different seasoning periods. So a traditional fix and hold is a 90-day period. Sub twos are 6-month holds. Lease options are 12-month holds.
Okay.
So you got to season it for 12 months before you can actually leverage that future value.
And I'm guessing you find that most beginner flippers or investors, they probably forget to kind of calculate in holding cost, and it's a big part of it. And then what are you going to lose on the way out?
That's a great point. So a perfect burr, we've known each other many years, right? I took my first
Since the 6th grade, to be exact.
right.
Yeah.
The first course I took was 97 after high school. It was $2,000, Carlton sheets, and they're just very nonchalant. You're just going to refinance and get your money back. Well, my first deal, that didn't happen. I left 30,000 in. My cash flow was about 480, right? So quick math, cash on cash return, 530,000, it's 60, right? So 5 years, we were 22 at the time. I'm like, I can't wait till I'm 27 to do my second deal.
Yeah.
Right? So I had to save up to replace that capital. And there's different strategies and techniques that I just didn't understand at the time. I probably should have fixed and flipped 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 properties. Maybe I made 20 grand on that first deal. So my start capital back then was 33. That 33 goes to 53, 73, 93, right? So on and so forth. And maybe you do that 1, 2, 3 years. My first 2 years, I did 2 deals because I didn't know any better. I was buying and leaving way too much cash.
Yeah.
So where's the cash going to come from?
Yeah. No,
Me.
absolutely. It wasn't so easy back then, and I wouldn't say that either of us had the right people around us to show us the way, right?
True.
I had a different upbringing, and, they were successful in their own way, but when it came to investing or real estate, there was nothing there. So everything became, learned from an early age,
Yeah.
and sometimes you learn through mistakes, and that's part of it. Anybody who says that they've never lost money on a deal, or they're just lying. It's impossible. If you've been in the game long enough, you're going to have, projects that you lose money on, and you learn from it. You say, what can I do better? Where did I go wrong, kind of thing.
Yeah. You can't learn if everything goes, like the last 3, 4 years, we've had tremendous upside. If everything goes up, I think people get confused and go, I'm really good at this.
Yeah.
And the fact is, you can't learn from those, if everything's going up. You learn more from your mistakes. And that's one thing we try to share. I've made millions and millions of dollars in mistakes. And so if I can save a customer from simple as hitting a pothole versus a wall,
Yeah.
That's a ton of money. Because we have an 80% failure rate for new customers coming in,
Yes.
80%, they lose that money and then they go, I'm not good at this, I'm out. But really what happens, they just pay too much for it. You make the money when you buy these things, not when you sell it.
Correct.
And make sure that vision that you have, whether it's fix and flip, fix and hold, make sure those data aligns with your liquidity requirements. Where I started with 33,000, I left 30 grand in, I benched my own player, not knowing better.
Yeah.
Because what could we buy for $3,000 even in 2000?
Well, I think the good point is you said there's an 80% failure rate, but I think that's where when you educate these people up front, you try to limit them making, that mistake. So, because you're looking for a long-term customer.
I am.
You don't want to be one and done.
No.
So
I want that relationship.
giving them the education and making sure that it cash flows one way or the other, whether they want to rent or flip it, making sure the numbers are there, because it's so easy to leave money on the table or take a bath. And like you said, if you take a bath, you're going to say, whoa, I guess I'm not good at this.
Yeah.
And just like you said, the upside of the, since 2021, part of 2020, the numbers were so high, everybody's making money, right? We saw a huge jump in property values.
Exponentially.
Yeah,
double.
like never before, really. I mean,
Yeah.
they jumped, a crazy amount. So it was real easy for, any investor to make money.
Right. And then the second wave hit, which was the cost of the goods, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So something that what you might have been, this was 10 grand on one project, it's now 20.
Well, I can tell you that I did a project in Bucks County, and I bought it right
One
before.
project in Bucks
Well,
County?
this was one of them. But this one in particular, I bought it right, and it was a small rancher. And had I kept it as a rancher, I think it would have made more money. But we did an addition on it, and that's right when the material spiked.
Yeah.
And the material costs were through the roof,
Yeah.
and, made a couple dollars. And when I say a couple dollars, probably $1,000 or $2,000, and
Right.
it was a 6 to 9 month project. So it was just it was time, money, but there was no way to know that was going to happen,
Sure.
right? So these things can happen as well.
But had you bought it wrong, you would have lost money. Most people go, well, at least you
Absolutely.
made money.
Yeah,
And then you're like, $1,000 for 9 months, not worth
Yeah.
my time.
no.
And so I want to do
Huge
that with
waste
I
of
want to do
time.
that with the customers at the onset, not the end set. I want to play, offense.
Yeah,
Or like when our Eagles played the Chiefs, right? They decimated
yeah,
them. Was our defense playing defense? No, they knew the plays, and that's what really you guys, for most investors, you got to know the numbers at the onset.
yeah.
Walk through your ideas. Something like that, you can't see it, but if you didn't buy it right, you would have lost real money.
Absolutely. And, you always got to think of unforeseens. I'm doing a project now that we just finished in Ambler, and ground drain was shot. There happened to be a 75-foot tree that was right over the drain line.
Right.
I ended up having
She
to...
loves water.
Yeah, yeah. So I had to go to the shade tree committee, and they were telling me I couldn't take the tree down. They told me to
Seen this
reconnect. And I ended up, going to the tree shade committee through email, and they approved it. And I took the tree down the next day. I didn't give anybody else a chance to say
Say
anything.
no.
But that's an unforeseen cost.
Sure.
You got thousands in tree removal, thousands in plumbing. Luckily, I bought this house right, and
Yeah.
it's not an issue. The money's built in, but I'm $30,000 over budget. I'm still going to make money, but that's an unforeseen, and you just don't know. You could try to cover every base, but things happen, things come up.
I think the nice part about, and I always talk about you, is you have so many opportunities. So obviously owning a real estate company, you make money when you buy it. You make money when you sell it. These new guys, they don't have that opportunity. You own a construction company, you make money there. So even as the investor, maybe the investor didn't make money, but when you're a team player like baseball, you never see the leadoff hitter bunting, right? And in that case, you're a bunt. But owning the title company, you got a little bit everywhere. And so it's not as bad. But if you're true just only from that investor perspective, it's really hard. And so you got to know not just what's a good deal, but where am I at in the game and what kind of plays do I need? Do I need a home run here? Do I need and it's singles, doubles, triples that win the game. Everybody wants that grand slam.
Everybody wants a home run, and they come.
If you're looking.
They'll come throughout. You can't try to hit a home run every time.
Can't.
But you might do 2, 3, 4, singles or doubles, and then all of a sudden, bang, you hit it out of the park.
Yeah.
That's the way it's supposed to be. Yeah. If you're looking for a home run every time, you're never going to find it, and you're not going to be happy.
Right. It's just not analysis paralysis.
Correct.
Right. Because a guy like you, where you're making money and all these other things, you can clearly buy it for a better price what the seller's going to want, and they can't compete. And so that's part of our process is how to get these new guys to compete with somebody like yourself. Because it's not just one person in the batter's box. When your realtors hit go on that sale, everybody's there. Absolutely. And you have to compete. And where you already know your numbers, right? You already have your data. And for 1,000 square foot, I can finish at $100 a foot or $75 a foot, depending on the neighborhood. And they're thinking, well, I'm going to piece it together and I'm going to do it for $30,000. And I go, no, you're not.
There's no such thing as a $30,000 renovation anymore if you're doing it the right way. I did that 15, 20 years ago. I'd buy a twin rancher in Rawhurst. I'd pay 20, 30 grand into it. It would usually sell within 2 weeks. But that doesn't exist anymore. Every renovation anymore, I feel like, is $100,000.
True. You get the guys.
And I own the company. Now, maybe I go above and beyond. I do, I want the house to be perfect, and I'm not going to leave things that I think can cause somebody problems later.
That comes with experience because getting that phone call after the fact, me and my partner did one project. Talk about a nightmare. It was 13 months in. We made about $6,000. We went with like 3 different strategies, 3 different contractors, because the contractor we had for the initial strategy, like, I already signed up for another thing. I can't help you. He had to walk. And so we had to find somebody else. And, as a contractor, to come in and finish somebody else's job, I don't care what you owe. Yeah. If it's 10 grand, he wants 20. If it's 30, it's 60. And so it ended up extending the timeline out exponentially. And interest rates back then were like 15%.
Yeah.
So we ended up making nothing. But after everything was said and done, my partner had hundreds of homes. I had about 50-some homes at the time. And this grandmom cleaned the water heater. We looked at this thing, brand new Bradford White, like fantastic, $1,000. We don't have to pay for it. Yeah. It busted within like 2 weeks. I'm going to sue you. And I'm like, well, $1,000.
Yeah.
We'll fix it. No problem. We cleaned it up. But this thing was over 15 years. Nobody thought to look. It was so clean.
Well, I can tell you, I learned very early on in Rawhurst doing a twin rancher. I redid the kitchens, the bathrooms. Well, in the basement, it had this beautiful stone wall with a bar, and it was, it looked great. I'm like, I'm not changing anything. I love it. So I leave that. I do everything else. About a month later, there was a pipe inside that front wall from the kitchen sink, cast iron. It cracked and it leaked. They didn't say anything to me. Right away, I'm getting a lawsuit.
Yeah.
I had the pictures, I had everything. I didn't touch it. But, if you go to court, you're going to make a deal one way or the other.
You're going to pay come or
It's got to work for both. You're going to pay the attorney. So it doesn't make sense. But had they called me, I would have just fixed it.
True.
Right? So from that day on, I said, I'm not ever leaving anything. If there's something, there's a pipe in the wall, I'm opening it up because I don't ever want to go through that again. And so these things can happen.
And now your reputation's a lot bigger than it was.
Well, I think your name has to matter, not only to you, but to the people out there,
100%.
That you're a man of your word and that you're going to stand behind anything that you do. And I think it's important to surround yourself with like-minded people and people that have your back no matter what. Whatever it is. I know we've known each other a very, very long time.
Yeah.
Crazy times. We had a lot of good times,
Great
too.
times.
Maybe some raves, maybe some dancing. But I know that if I need something or that there's a problem, I know that if you're with me, you have my back, and you obviously
1000%.
know the same.
Yeah.
But it's just being like-minded and having goals and trying to hit those goals.
I think that's a great point. So rising tides raise all ships. When they're coming for a contractor, like, you guys aren't partners, but we're partners. When you're coming to a lender, we're not partners, but we're partners.
Yeah.
The realtor, we're all working together. These people are feeding everybody. We have to make sure that they can afford the title, the insurance, and everybody. So having their best interest at heart, but it really goes back to goals. And I think a lot of people start, like I started, I wanted 100 rentals. You remember living in Northeast, I was living with my sister, typical Philly row. She got 3 babies in one room, me in one. I'm hating life.
Yeah.
I'm not making the right life choices. So I thought 100 rentals would get me there, but with $33,000, I had no clear goal how to get there. But I would tell people that's the goal, 100 rentals, no idea how to get there. So sitting down and mapping down your purpose, and I tell people all the time, once I understand purpose, that drives direction. Direction determines destination based upon your circle of influence. Again, we didn't come up with the greatest of influences.
Yeah.
My dad was always like, save your money, but never said, all right, second gear, invest in this, or put your money in an S&P, or even a money market, something simple until that money grows,
and you know what you're going to do.
And
with
then
it.
right, and then I'm going to buy a rental, or maybe you're going to fix and flip 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 properties, and then you're going to start buy and hold, because with 30,000 you don't have enough to buy and hold. And help these guys map through their stuff. I got a kid right now. His name's Brian. I met him a year ago, and we just closed on his 78th property. He had 33.
Yeah.
When I met him, what do you want, Brian? He's like, I want a Ferrari. I'm like, okay. I'm like, but what do you really want? Because I'm going to tell you right now, when you get $500,000 in the bank, you're not going to buy a Ferrari with it. I promise you. He's like, I want to make $1 million a year. I'm like, well, that's pretty easy. If you take $400 net a door times, let's say 100 doors, that's $960, right? I said, you already have 33. You need 167.
Yeah.
So I mapped it out. I said, if he's working 2 jobs. Why was he working 2 jobs? He's working 2 jobs because he's leaving too much cash, just like I did.
Yeah.
And he was trying to buy and hold everything, not understanding that you could wholesale, lease option, wraparound mortgage, seller held finance. There's so many. You have 6, 7 different looks.
A lot of different angles. Yeah.
Yeah, like when Jalen's back in the pocket, everybody wants Devontae in the corner.
Yeah.
But the reality is, it's those handoffs to Saquon, hitting Goddard across the center. You know what I mean?
Well, we can all agree if he ran more this season.
True.
Yeah.
But we need aggressive play calling, not to get too sidetracked.
Yeah, no.
Kevin's out of here.
Yeah.
Thank God for that.
Yep.
But the reality is, they just don't think that, hey, I have different, ideas where if your dad was, I don't know, Bill Gates, and we're like, we're going to Florida this weekend, we're going to get there in 2 hours.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have a plane. You don't have a plane yet.
Yeah.
Yet. But we're going to wait at the airport for 2 hours, right? But they're already there. And so having, like you said before, having some of these people in our lives might have gotten us there faster because we had to make some of the mistakes on our own. And so helping these guys and girls say, hey, this isn't the right price point, or this isn't the right idea. You're not going to do it for 30 grand.
Learn from our mistakes, and having the knowledge to share that with these young investors, agents, people that want to run a business. Learn from our mistakes and let us show you the way, right?
Yeah. Let's don't hit the pothole.
Yeah.
$400 for the tire. It's a half a day off of work. What's your time worth? Understanding time is super important, because as young, right, time was infinite.
Yeah.
It's never going to happen to me. And as we're older, I start counting my days.
Well, time moves very, very slow when you're young, because I think you have things to look forward to. When I'm 16, I could drive. When I'm 18, technically you're an adult. When I'm 21, I could drink legally. And when I'm 25, I think I'll save on my insurance, right? But, once you have kids and a family, it's like, it feels like everything's a blink.
Time goes faster, and I think it's because our memory is already full.
Yeah.
Because as you're young, everything is something new, right? So your memory's like, all right, let me record that. And now as we're older, like, I know how to get to work, right? Did you ever drive home and you're like, I got something, like I was supposed to stop off and do something, and I forget?
I don't know how I even got where I was going.
Right, because
it's
muscle memory. Your memory knows. And so I think as we get older, but it's those times with the kids and the family, like boat days are the best days.
Yeah.
I know you love your boat.
I love, yeah.
They're the best.
Nothing better.
When I ask the kids, what's your favorite day on vacation? Right. And so go back to purpose. What's your why? Why do you want to do these things?
I think it's important to surround yourself with people that have the same goals that you do. And I think if you're not in the room with people that have your goals, or maybe you're around your friends or family who maybe they have a negative mindset. And so you come up with, I really want to do this. And they're giving you reasons why you can't do it or why it won't work. Well, maybe you're just in the room with the wrong people. And I
Yeah.
think that you need to find a new circle. And that doesn't mean, you have to get rid of your circle but just know that if you go to these people, they're always going to just be negative, right?
Yeah.
So I think ask questions, search out the people that are doing what you want to do. I mean, I've had so many people reach out to me, even in the past 6 months, looking for advice or what they're looking to do. And I'm always happy to have these conversations.
Yeah.
But you just ask the question, think of what your why is or what your goal is, and reach out to people that are doing it already.
Yeah.
What's the worst they could say? I'm not going to give you the information. I don't want to have the conversation. And then you know what kind of person that is. And that's not a person you want to be around with either.
So growing up poor, I was always like, rich people are assholes.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could say that, but,
Yeah.
Rich people. First rich guy I really met, a South Philly meetup, had the Rolex on, gave me strategy. He's like, you need to fix and flip 2 properties that everyone buy and hold. And I looked the man dead in the face and said, I don't want to fix and flip properties. Like, I want 100 rentals.
Yeah.
And he's got so aggravated. He looked at me, he goes like, look, kid, you got to do some stuff you don't want to do in this world. And that really pushed me to go home and go, what is a perfect burr?
Yeah.
I'm playing a game and I don't know the boundaries, and I wish I had somebody else that could do that. And so that's why I do a lot of the stuff that I do. And I love that you give the information and you help people because you think they're not going to help. But the reality is the first thing you do is help me. And my mom would say, you don't give to get.
Yeah.
But what I figured out now, the more I give,
The more you get.
the more you get.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And it's mainly because you're not thinking about the getting.
No,
You're just there to help.
I'm trying to help.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not quid pro quo. It doesn't mean I give to you and you give to me. It's not direct.
That mindset is a terrible mindset where it's like, well, I did this for you and you didn't, but do it without expecting anything back.
Zero
It
expectations.
will come.
It will come. It will come from a different direction than you're expecting. So having yourself in different rooms and be mindful of what water fountain are you drinking from, right? Because if you're drinking from that negative person, they're going to tell you all the reasons why you can't. One of my favorite stories, I had a CPA teaching a strategy to this guy, tax strategy, and it was Thanksgiving weekend, and he goes home, has Thanksgiving with the family, and he goes, I don't think that's a great idea for me right now. He's like, my other guy says I shouldn't. He's like, okay, well, can we sit down with this person? Can we talk about it? He's like, no, we can't during the day because he drives a SEPTA bus.
Yeah.
So you're going to not listen to your CPA, and you're going to take your advice from the guy that drives a SEPTA bus.
Well, some people will take advice from people that have never done it before.
Yeah.
Right? And, you have to get with people that are doing what you want to do. Super important. Now, how would you say that your mindset changed about money as you got older?
So I think for most people in your 20s, money was freedom, right? Freedom to do things, freedom to not be paycheck to paycheck, buying experiences like we talked about earlier. And then as you graduate, you realize like money's a tool, right? Money's leverage. Money is something that will get me more assets to where I'm no longer, trading my time for money. I don't have to go to work for 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, whatever, and come home with a set paycheck. I can buy something else like that real estate. And then that constantly adds to eventually I can actually replace my income. So if you're like, hey, I make, I don't know, $5,000 a month driving a bus. I don't know what they make, but at 10 properties at 500 net a door, you need 10. But if your capabilities are only to do 2 a year, 2 times 5 is 10. In 5 years time, you can quit SEPTA or whatever it is. But having that mindset says, all right, I can buy assets that will leverage it. And now that I'm older, money is.
I would think as when we were younger, obviously we wanted, and not that we don't have nice cars now, but when we should have been, or, holding more money to put it in, we were probably buying things we probably shouldn't have, right?
Experiences, yeah.
Experiences, cars, watches, clothes,
Thunderbird.
Whatever it is, right? But now that I'm older, I want, comfort. I want to be on the beach. I want to be on my boat. I want the right people around me in my businesses and in my personal life, obviously my family. I want us all to have a great time, but I want to know that if I need to go somewhere, they have it handled.
Yeah.
So, I build a great team and I have great people around me. And obviously,
It's the hardest part.
My family is amazing.
Yeah.
And I think you've done the same. I mean, I see, your Instagram post, you're working from the pool, but that's great because you've built a business where you can do that.
Yeah.
I think it's so important for all of us to build multiple streams of revenue.
Yeah. Because as you get older, you're like, my grandfather always said, you got to be able to make money in your sleep. And so that's why I went into real estate and, went down that path. But I think as you get older, being able to take care of yourself, because, how many more years I have? 20, 30. So health is super important. So now money affords that. I mean, with healthcare, my healthcare is almost $2,000 a month.
That's what I pay too.
You got a lot more kids than I do.
I do, but
God bless you.
Nothing goes down in cost, right? Everything steady goes up as we get older. But I think, the mindset as you get older, you think about things a little bit more. I'm still, what I would say balls to the wall. If I see a business that I want to do or I see a project I want to do, nothing's going to stop me, but I'm more strategic with it. I don't put myself in positions where I'm going to be stressed about it.
Right.
And I let very little things stress me out at this point. I say this all the time. I don't see problems. I see solutions, and that's how I choose to live my life.
Yes.
And no matter what comes up, I'm going to go through it.
I'm going to build that
bridge. I'm
going
to have the right people next to me to go through it, with me.
1,000%.
Because you're stronger with a team than you are just by yourself.
100%. Yeah, having the right people around you is super important. It was funny. I was talking to Jayla at your Christmas party, and she feels like she's not doing enough.
My oldest, yeah.
Yeah, his oldest. And I told her, don't run his race.
Yeah.
Do not compare yourself to that guy. You're going to feel inadequate. Run your own race. And I tell that to everybody else too.
Yeah.
Do not compare yourself to the person next to you. No time's a good time. Just get started.
Well, she's had a front row seat being 21 when I had her. She's had a front row seat to everything building and becoming,
from Ronhurst to all the houses
to what it is now. And, she appreciates the hard work. I mean, she hits me with those cards and brings me to tears.
Yeah.
But she's going to do big things, and
she's already done big things. I highlighted those things, all those monuments that she's done, and she's like, I haven't really looked at it that way. I started running her race for her.
Yeah, people only are trying to look down the line, and maybe they can't see it, but they forget everything that they've done, and she's done a lot. She's very, very smart, almost a full ride to Jefferson, get into the accelerated program, and now, working in a hospital and going to be, one of the few that they take off orientation early because she's great. She's, all of my kids are great.
She had a great mentor.
And I believe they're all going to do big things, and I think they see the hard work and they're taught the hard work, and I think that's very important. Whether it's business or being a parent, is teaching them that hard work, there's a reward in that.
Yeah, consistent, and I think most people don't realize the daily grind. Everybody sees the watches or the cars and go, I want to be like you. And I'm like, I'm just a poor kid that figured it out.
Yeah.
I'm just out here grinding. I'm not smarter than you. I'm not better than you. I will work harder than you. That I promise.
What do you think most people misunderstand about leveraging capital?
I think most people think like leverage is, cash. It's not. Leverage is your money on steroids, right? It's money on top of your money. And so I think sometimes people chase bad numbers and the leverage magnifies the losses. So whether you're good or bad, like it's just going to make things better. So I always teach people, if you got $100,000 to spend, by yourself, no hard money, you can get 100% of your own effort. 100,000 with me, we're doing 300,000, and I'd much rather have like 85% of a $300,000 deal than 100% of a $100,000. And so whether you leverage that to do 3 $100,000 deals, right? You can splice it to $150,000 deals, but you're amping up your money, and so it's a powerful tool. One of my favorite words is leverage. Right, but done right, it's
a powerful tool when you do it the right way and you have the right people behind you.
Correct.
To guide you. Otherwise, again, you could end up in a bad situation.
You can end up losing money, and we've all lost money, or even where you just talked about, we both made money on 2 horrific deals.
Yeah.
But it wasn't worth our time.
No, you can say you made money, but you didn't. You
I didn't.
lost money.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Because
Yeah.
what's your time worth, right? You have to put a value on your time.
Yes. And I didn't do that until later in life. And so now my time is very valuable. I get those negative
I
people
agree.
on the phone and they know everything. I'm like, great, because next month starts my March starts my 27th year I've been doing this. I don't know everything.
Yeah.
What I knew yesterday, they change.
Yeah.
So
Never stop learning.
No.
Never stop learning, and never be the person in the room that thinks you know everything.
The day I do is the day I die, brother.
Yeah. Just, you got to be willing to learn from everybody around you. And I would say that was probably one of my, best attributes, is that I could
Got
take the good and the bad from people.
Yes.
And I would listen to everybody. And I have a lot of older mentors that, own businesses. And I always listened to what they have to say. And maybe some of the stuff I didn't necessarily agree with, but I would think of it as like I'm getting a new tool and I'm putting it in my toolbox.
Yes.
Right? And now I have that for next time.
Yeah.
And, it's just kind of how I've always lived my life. And, you have to be willing to listen.
Yeah.
Right? And some people have a problem with that.
People like, I need to walk a mile in your shoes. I'm like, I don't need to walk a second in a crackhead's shoes to know that I don't want to do that. Right. But same thing. I had a lot of gifts and some people in my life that helped me get to where I was going. And I could see, obviously growing where we did, I had a lot of bad influences. And I think that goes back to this, two brothers. Dad was an alcoholic. One's an alcoholic and one's not. One says, I knew what not to do. The other one says, I knew what to do because of it. And so if you can absorb all my mistakes and not walk a second in those shoes and not pay the millions of dollars that I had to pay to get out of them, how much further on the pie chart or on the charts is that person going to be, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that's where your kids, like, obviously we talked about Blaze earlier, already doing his podcast at 9, you know what I mean? Is he our next Hurricane Schwartz?
Weather videos? Well, we'll see.
Hurricane Blaze?
We'll have to get him a bow tie.
Got him a bow tie or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the funny part is, our upbringings is, I met you around the 6th grade, but at that point I was moving out of the city.
Yeah.
I didn't know anybody. And back then it wasn't as normal to move from the city to that school district. And I'm not necessarily going to name the school district. People will figure it out. But a lot of people treated me like I was trash. I thought Ronhurst was nice, but apparently it wasn't. So I was called names. And of course I made friends with a lot of people, and we met, and some good relationships came out of it.
Yeah.
But even teachers were treating me a certain way.
Yeah.
And I could have let that defeat me, and I could have gotten down, but I just pushed right through. And, look, I wouldn't say I didn't have the right influences around me. So I was smart. I was good at school.
Some of that negativity could have been the positivity that you need. It's the fuel, that fire. When somebody is negative towards you, not naming names again, but I told somebody my dreams early on. The one of the 100 rental properties was 21 when I started doing the course, or 20 years. And she patted me on my head and said, sure you will, sweetie.
Yeah.
Now, you've been to my other house. I had a, big house in a neighborhood, and I was 29 years old, got her out of the big BMW, and she looked at the house and she said, I told you so.
Yeah. Yeah. No, listen, that was
fuel.
I was one of the youngest to move into Holland.
I remember that house.
People thought that, Arlene was their sister and not their mom. I mean, we were young, and and
then they ask you, where do you get your money?
Yeah.
What do you do? And that's the best part, right?
Yeah, I work very hard.
I work. Yeah, work until people ask you what you do and what you know.
And that's
who's
what
your
I
daddy
think,
and who does he work for?
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't realize that, in the beginning, you're going to be putting in hours. I would leave my house at 5:30 in the morning, and sometimes I wouldn't get home from 8, covered in, black soot or dust from breathing in these houses. But there was nothing going to stop me from, 1, providing for my family, and 2, building, a dream or a goal. And I feel like now that we're both in our, upper 40s, we'll say.
Shut your mouth.
We, I do think a lot differently, and but that came with learning. I mean, I used to think, how I handled situations, not always right, but in the situation, I would say, no, this is how you got to do it. But once you start listening to other people's ideas, maybe You mash both ideas together.
Yeah.
You know, maybe his idea is better, and you're like, you know what, that's a better fix for this problem.
Yeah.
And being able to see that, you know, you don't always see that from the beginning, but because you're struggling a lot of the time.
Yeah. You can't see over the mountain when you're in the valley.
Yeah.
And so having some of those mentors share some of those ideas, and where you say, maybe this doesn't work, you can pick and choose what works for you. I had a woman give me that advice early on in my career, and it stuck. I tell everybody every day, pick and choose what works for you, because everybody's at a different part of the game.
Yeah.
You know, there is no right or wrong answer. You know, it's just, what's the fastest vehicle for where you're at, you know?
Yeah.
I used to walk to work, ride a bike to work. People take trains, buses.
Yeah. Listen, you could always make excuses and say, I can't get there, right? I've hired so many people that I'll see you Monday and they don't show up.
Yeah.
You came to me for the job.
Yeah.
I gave you the job, and you didn't show up on your first day.
I did that to you guys, remember?
Yeah.
Roofing. I roofed one day.
Yeah.
I was out with friends the other night. I said I was a roofer. They said, really? I said, guess how many days I lasted? The answer were 4, 3, and 2. I said, you're all wrong. 1 wasn't for me.
Yeah, and
But
that's fine.
But that pushes you.
Yeah, you got to find your why and your how, and what's right for you. Would you say, you know, why easy money usually ends badly?
Oh, so many sayings on that. You know, you look at lottery winners, right? You know, they lose it in like 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, that's
Why?
a huge percentage.
Almost 100% lose it within 3.5 to 5.5 years if you Google it. And so I think most people don't know what it takes to build it. And so having you like show your kids the hard work, they know what it takes so that they can build their own. You look at guys like Warren Buffett, they give him $1 million, but they're not giving him billions, you know? And the one guy, I think he's a musician, had he just kept the money in Berkshire, he'd be way richer, but he's happy. And so, you know, you got to figure out, you know, what your why is. Happiness is a choice. What do these things all mean for me? You know, you can be happy doing so many different things, but easy money doesn't make money. That's all I know is it just amplifies, again, like we talk about these last couple of years, there's some easy money that's happened, right? You know, just natural appreciation. The real people, I mean, how many realtors left this last year?
Well, you had so many agents who all of a sudden were doing deals and they're posting on social media, I got 50 grand over, I did this and this. Really, all you did was list the property.
Right.
Right? The market did it. Right?
Right.
What it came down to is on the back end. Did you have somebody that negotiated properly? Was the contract properly written? That was more important than putting it on the market.
Yeah.
And the answer to this question, no. A lot of them did not have the experience to handle those types of transactions because they don't have the proper training, the proper brokerage. But it wasn't attributed to them, even though, you know, on Facebook or social media, you can write whatever you want, but it was the market. And I know that, you know that.
Well, these next couple of years are going to really shake out. And I've always said I made more money in the down market after 08 than I did in the up market because all the other jokers, they're gone.
Well, even
competition goes
if you
away.
date back to what happened in, 2008, you know, I was still doing flips. You know, they stayed on the market an extra week or two, but I did them right, and they still sold. It wasn't an issue, and I still made money.
Yeah.
So it didn't matter. The right product still sold, right? And I think that'll be true. We'll see what happens in the next few years, but
foreclosures are coming up again. There's an uptick. So what we did back then, a lot of the people that were short selling their homes, they weren't allowed to receive any money. So how are we buying these houses? We're buying a ton of houses. Give me 10 grand, I'll buy your furniture.
Yeah.
So that these people, you know, and if they're your realtor, now they got 10 grand, you can go lease them a property. They had no money.
Yeah.
You know, and so you can't let people destitute, and that's really what happened to a lot of people. But there was a
they
lot
had
of
no help.
opportunity. And again, where you said, you know, I said building bridges, you know, you're a solution finder. Let's find a way to get these people out. And I think that's another great tool that's going to be coming up, or lease options or sub twos, because we got a lot of 2 and 3% out there. That's a great strategy. And if people are, you know, 90-day late plus, you know, the pre-foreclosure, let's use that as another tool in your tool belt to
Well,
get
that's
after
good.
more
That
assets.
brings me to my next question. You know, what are investor loans actually designed for?
Again, back to they're designed to help these guys and girls fix and flip, you know, products that they typically can't get through conventionally, and quickly too, because a lot of these persons, you know, they want to close in 2-3 weeks, you know, enter the D word, you know, death, divorce. There's all these different pressures on them to sell quickly. Or some people, we had a lot of people that were, you know, had to go into hospice or whatever, and they have to sell all their assets, and they got to close in 2 weeks. You know, when I was at Chase, you know, pack a lunch, 35, 60 days.
Yeah.
You know, Wells Fargo, we were locking stuff for 90 days and couldn't close.
So that's a good point. So the first transaction is probably going to take the longest, right? Because that's when you're getting
Bell
all
curve.
of the documents and, looking at all the parameters of their finances. So that one might take a little longer.
A little bit. We
Still
probe not so
30
much
days,
the
you think?
finances.
45?
2 weeks, 3 weeks on average.
Okay.
Yeah.
But let's
Usually
say,
3 weeks.
so let's say you did your first deal, everything went well, they came back to you.
Yeah.
Can we close it sooner?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Typically about a week sooner.
Okay. So
I've already,
2
I've
weeks.
already looked through your background. I already looked through your entity. I've already verified all the deals that you've done. The first time as many flips as you do, depending on, again, we fund not just, the financials, right? The experience part.
Yeah.
So if you got 10 flips in the last 3 years, I got to pull all those property reports. Somebody's got to look them up. And you might have numerous entities, which you do.
Yeah.
Well, now I need all those operating agreements, right? So it takes time to go through that. But once we do that, we scale for the next time, so we don't have to go through all that process
Speeds
again.
up the process.
Yeah,
You can
everything's
move
templated.
quicker.
Yeah,
And a lot of times that could be the difference whether the investor's offer gets,
Sure.
accepted because, you could make the call. I've worked with this investor.
Yeah,
Solid. We'll close in 2 weeks, no issue. And,
Close in a
and maybe
week.
that's the difference between multiple offers. So
we need to give your realtors more opportunities, right? Swings at the bat. And so if that's one of the things that we could put our hat to work together and say, look, we'll close faster. Even if they're newer, I can move. We're built for speed.
Yeah.
So that's the main reason why it's there. But it's also, when I was at the bank, you had to be in business for 2 years.
Yeah.
And if you're not in business for 2 years, they got to use your W-2 to qualify for the income. And I had a woman recently, she was in the military, her and her husband, and had 8, 9 properties. And they blanketed all 8, 9 of them. They're all worth about $200-some thousand a pop. And she only owed like $200,000.
Yeah.
Well, I took 2 of them and gave her, like $300-some thousand, and we paid off that. She couldn't get a car is what ended up happening. And,
Yeah.
cheap money doesn't make money.
Yeah, but seeing the angle, you were able to look at the deal and see another way where a lot of the traditional lenders or, we'll say so-called investor lenders, they want the easy deals,
Yeah.
right? And I would say, maybe in the last few years there was more, easy deals, but, I feel there's no such thing. Like every deal you got to work through something.
Yeah. Everybody calls, what's your rate, what's your rate, what's your rate? As soon as they do that, I know they have no clue to what's going on because there's 10 different data points that make these things work. And we jump on the phone, run through your background, what's your experience, where is it?
People with no experience expect the best rate, and that's just not how it works.
They want the 100% financing, and that product's not designed for you. I always joke about an Enzo Ferrari, right? $1 million plus car. I don't care if you win the lottery tomorrow. Can you buy one?
Yeah.
No, you got to buy 3 Ferraris before an average person can't jump in and drive that car, and that product is not designed for that person either.
Yeah.
But they just don't understand money, or they go, oh, it's expensive. Okay, well then.
So with these products, who should and who shouldn't use them?
I think when you're trying to push margins and things like that, they're the cases when you're like, I'm banking on future rent increases. Like you have to analyze the asset, what's it worth now, and make sure that they work. So I think anybody can really use these products. So I have some people that are completely fresh. I did 14 deals conventionally before I crossed into this world. So there's other people that will do tons of deals before they get into this.
Yeah.
So, but I think they're designed for just about anyone where it's profitable. It's, they call it hard money, right? It's not cheap money.
Yeah.
You don't want cheap money, go back to the bank.
Yeah.
And then
go through all the motions
Yeah,
of
the rates-
trying to even get it done.
Yeah, it's 5%. And then 30 days later, 60 days later, like we would do, it goes, sorry, you don't qualify.
Yeah.
We're going to meet you where you're at. And we're going to try to give you the best cost of capital for where you're at in the game. So obviously with you, I give you the best cost of capital, but I get somebody else with your experience, I'm doing the same thing. But like you said earlier, there are tools in your tool belt, and you just need to know how to use them. So a lot of times we're advising these guys and girls, is it the right tool or strategy for where you're at in the game?
Absolutely. So how would you say smart investors think differently than your average consumer?
I think we touched on that already. I mean, just finding solutions where other people can't. I would fix and flip a house or fix and hold a house in Philly. My favorite one is find, I'm like 6'1"-ish. Don't tell my wife, 6 foot. But if I find a short ceiling, the 5-foot basements, don't buy those.
Yeah.
But if I find like an RM1 and it's got a garage out back, I know I can convert that easily to a duplex. I got duplex by right. I need a variance. I don't need a whole zoning change. You know, Philadelphia.
You're not getting a zoning change. It's very hard.
Maybe in 6 months.
Maybe 6 to 9 and 10 grand.
Right.
But it depends on the area. Are there other ones close? Right? You have to look at all these options. And
Right.
RM1, obviously, you don't have that issue.
So savvy investors know these things at the onset. They already have their vision and their walkthrough, just like you did before. You're like, what's the highest and best use? That Feasterville, or you said Feasterville, I think Bucks County.
Yeah.
Do I put a second floor on it? Do I not? Right? Because popping the top, you need a lot of permits.
Yeah.
This takes time.
And money.
And
lumber.
Yeah. Goes up. And so does all that stuff make sense at the onset? And say, all right, I did a novation by accident about a year or two. Bought this house in Florida for like $245. It was about $250 all in. I'd paid her cost. It was worth $350, $380. I put together a little just lipstick eyeliner. I know you didn't think $30,000 budget, but I did have a little lipstick. We're just going to paint, you know, that sort of thing, and throw it right back up. She was asking $430. She ended up taking $245 for it. I get out there. The guys are like, let's put $60,000. After I get the budget, $60,000 was just the labor. It was more like 90. And I ran the math. I'm like, for me to put 90 in it, 6 months of holding, I said, you know what, screw it. Just relist it.
Yeah.
I fixed at a violation, like $700 I put into this thing. Listed it for $299, sold it for $320 within like a week.
Yeah.
I had 2 bidders. That was it.
Yeah.
You know, but
and that's okay. Sometimes it's better to take the 20, 30, 40 quick than possibly wait 6 to 9 months, holding cost, and maybe you're at the same point.
So where you couldn't see the tree, I couldn't see those hurricanes that came after.
Yeah.
I sold July before the first hurricane. So had I been holding, had I did a different strategy, that outcome might have been gravely different. So I think savvy investors can kind of see, you know, I'd much rather have, you know, 1 in the hand than 2 in the bush. I think a lot of people want to, I want to be, you know, build brand new. And I'm like, what's your experience? I've never done any deals. Well, you got to crawl before you walk and walk before you run.
Yeah,
Don't
and
start building for your
house
first.
isn't going to do it for you unless you're going to find a piece of land where they're going to allow you to build 15, 20 townhomes or single homes. The money's not there. The cost of land's too high. The cost to build's too high.
And the length of time is too high. Yeah. You need a lot of cash. And when you look at, all right, let me tie up my cash for that much. There's other vehicles you could put it in.
I bought a lot in Philly, and I had plans.
A lot, or you buy a lot?
Yeah, I buy a lot, but this was a lot.
Yeah.
And I had the architect start working on the plans. I was getting the plans done. But I said, let me list it. Maybe I'll just, if I can sell it, I'll sell it. If not, I'll build it.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting 2 offers, and you know, so I ended up selling it to an investor, and that was okay. You know, I made a quick $15K, and you know, I gave them the plans with it, you know, and I paid for that.
Right.
And, you know, so sometimes it's like, how much time am I going to lose on this project? And that's how I look at all these projects now. How much time is going to take me away from the other things that I'm building?
And that's how your money changes as we get older. Right?
Absolutely.
Is it worth my time? Is it worth my health?
Yeah.
I might rather wholesale it. I'm just going to list it. You know, I'm going to do this, or, you know, you have all these different options, novation. You know, there's so many different ways to slice that cat. And so those guys and girls are looking at those solutions and going, for my time, I'm going to do this. And you shift gears, because you try not to shift gears, because when you're changing, like you don't want to be in the huddle calling the audible. It usually doesn't work out well. Usually you're calling audible because there's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, to touch on like the investors, you know, I would say that, you know, investors don't chase rates, right? They chase strategy.
Yes. Strategy and technique is more important than the cost, because at that point in time, it doesn't matter what the cost of the money is. And I always joke, you know, if you're going to buy a property for $1 and you don't have $1, and I go, hey, it's 20% interest on that dollar, you're like, well, that's expensive, right? But if it's worth $1 million, do you really care?
Yeah.
But if you're buying $1 million property for $1 million, and I go, I'll lend you the $1 million at 20%, are you going to do that deal? No.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah. No, I get it.
Yeah, I know you get it.
Yeah, I get it.
These guys and girls got to get it.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to grow.
Get started. It's never going to be perfect. If you're waiting for perfection, you're going to miss it. And then you're going to be like, I should have. And there's going to be these next couple of years, you're going to see, you know, with the way things are going right now. Right now is a great time to buy. And everybody's sitting, they're holding their purses, clutching it.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of opportunity. But just, you know, get with your realtor, get with whoever you're working with, the wholesaler, figure out what the math is, and then make your offer for your strategy where it makes sense. And then get consistently doing that, where you're making, you know, 5, 10, you know, with Brian, I said, you make 20 offers a week. For the next 10 years, by the time that you're 40, you'll hit you'll have 200 properties. He calls me the next day. He goes, it's not fast enough. I said, great. I did the math. Make 40 offers a week.
Yeah.
You're working 2 jobs. I don't know how much weight you can handle, right? That's a lot of offers.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we closed 78. So we're up to 78 total so
that's
far.
awesome.
In about a year's time. So he's 31 now. He quit his second job. Kid's killing it.
That's amazing. But it's amazing that he had somebody that was able to not only help him get the funds that he needs, but somebody that was able to give him a guideline to get there and the goal to get there, which isn't always the case.
He gave me the goal, but I asked the right questions, and I think a lot of people don't do that. They don't deep dive enough. They go, oh, here's the deal. And I go, okay, well, what are the numbers? I'm like, how much are the taxes? How much? They don't even ask their own questions. I'm like, swing through on every project, swing for the fences. And if you have multiple assets, analyze each one on its own merits, because you can't, do apples and oranges in the same, they may be in the same bag, but you got to pull them out.
Yeah. And you can't be afraid of the risk, right? With risk comes reward.
Yeah. And when things are tremendous upsides, the risk becomes non-apparent, it almost becomes invisible. And that's the scary part. And then people think they get, oh, I'm really good at this, right? I got 50 over ask, right? And then their lifestyle changes and their houses changes before their mindset changes and their reserves change. And then the stuff hits the fan.
I think I learned that at a very early age. My real dad, who at the time, I was under 10 years old, he would always have something he was doing. And I would say he was a great salesperson, but he couldn't keep the money. So he would make money somehow. And I'll be honest with you, I don't even know what he did back then because I was too young. But he would buy a new car and, he'd be the big Mahaff.
Sure.
And then I'd be sitting at the front window and a tow truck would pull up and take it. And I was like, what? Somebody just took your car. And, and it's funny because we didn't talk for a very long time. And then we contacted a little and he was still doing the same shit.
He was still stuck in first gear.
It was still like buy, sell, or what's the $1 million idea? It was like crazy talk. Yeah. And obviously
chasing the viral.
Yeah.
Well, that goes back to
put
the
him where
money.
he is. But for me, I didn't realize what it was then. Yeah. But as I got older, I was like, wow, and look, we all spent money on silly, crazy things, having a good time, and that's fine.
$2,000 on bottle service.
Yeah, yeah, but
don't do it.
Yeah, don't do it. As you get older, you learn, and just having the comfort of, if I want to buy something, I'll buy it, but being able to build the business and watch it keep growing is more important. My
money's making money, so you don't, buy the car based upon your efforts. The rich buy the car off of their money's making the money.
Absolutely.
And that's really what we're trying to teach these guys and girls, how to make their little dollar bills, put overalls and work boots on and make those guys go to work and quit trading your time for cash. Yeah. Because you're always going to do that. You're always going to chase your tail. You're always trying to prove to somebody, oh, I got the watch. And there was a time I wanted this watch so bad. Yeah. It sat in the safe for the longest time. I had to go in the safe, cleaning paper, so I brought it out. Yeah. I sit at home. I don't wear a watch all day. Every day. It's not important. There would be a time where those things are sexy. I know you got a beautiful car in the garage. How often do you take it out?
Never.
When Blaze asks, that's when you take it out.
Yeah, about it. But now it's on a lift, so getting down. It's a project. It becomes a project.
Yeah.
And look, I have the watches. I collect them, and I think I bought my first Rolex in like 2005. And who knew it was going to be worth double now? So good investment.
GMT.
But the most watches do not, right?
Yeah,
like
most don't
the average watches aren't, and that's fine if you want to give yourself a gift every once in a while, a pat on the back. I know I wasn't always good at, patting myself on the back. I had this mentality that no, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and I think that was my drive. But I'm doing something that a big majority of people can't do, right? Or they can do it if they had the right people to show them the way.
But they tell themselves they can't. It starts there, and then they go to the
the
bus driver next door, and he goes, "Hey, don't." And just because you can't doesn't mean I can't. And so I always tell people too, I never want to yuck anyone, John. I never want to pat them on the head, But I do want to say, hey, stay in your lane. Like, you're over in this lane, and you're trying to jump here. You can get there, but not tomorrow, not next week. You need to grind it out for the next 2, 3, 4, or Brian's case, 10 years. We're probably going to hit his goal in 3.5 to 5 years if we keep going the way we're going.
And that'll be amazing.
But
Yeah.
at the same time, you look at guys like Saquon and Jalen, right? He's squatting 600. Saquon's squatting 585. He's 27 years old. He didn't just step up to 585.
Yeah.
But everybody looks at it and goes, oh,
Everybody sees the finish. They see the end product.
they don't see that 5 a.m. grind.
Yeah. They don't. They just think, oh, he must have a great life. Must be nice, right? And
Right, must be nice.
must be nice. You have to get
Yeah,
rid of
it's
that
nice.
mindset, because the work that goes into building a business,
One of my pet peeves is it must be nice to be you.
and it is. You know what?
But I didn't. I don't deserve this. I earned this. There's a difference. I'm not entitled to this. You know.
But that's the thing. Obviously, it's supposed to be a backhanded insult. But
I
to
take
me,
it as one.
I like to say, you know what? It is nice to be me. I have the drive and the work ethic to get where I
Yeah.
wanted to be. And I think a majority of people could do it if they surround themselves with people
Yeah.
like us that are willing to get you where you want to go.
Yeah, help the next guy, next girl, help you get to where you're going, and we'll do it all together.
I mean, I just want to take more vacations like you know?
Stop it. Guy lives on vacation.
You live
Oh,
on
that's
vacation.
me. I'm sorry.
That's you. That's you.
But I'm always working. Everybody's
That's
like, it's
true.
not, yeah, they
No,
don't see him
listen,
up
I
at
see
4 or
it.
5 o'clock in the morning. I'm out on the patio or whatever, so I don't wake her. Start early. And then hopefully by lunchtime, I'm out by the pool.
Yeah, listen, I do the same thing. If I'm on vacation, and it rings and it's one of my agents, or it's one of my, construction managers, or my
Yeah.
team lead, I have to answer the phone because they might need my input.
Yeah.
So I think it's super important to be available, but also, to get yourself free to where you can enjoy yourself as well. You can't be totally tied down to it.
Yeah.
And it's also teaching your leaders that they can make a decision without you,
Yeah.
and that you'll back them, right? Your people can't be afraid to make a decision.
Scared money don't make money.
No. So
Yeah.
they have to be able to make decisions on the fly as well. And it's okay for them to share it with you and you to back them. Sometimes it might not be exactly what you would do, but as long as you get to the same solution, that's fine. There's more than one way to get there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Scared money don't make money. And you got to stay balanced, right? So you got 4 areas in your life that you need to be balanced on. Do you know what they are?
You tell me.
You tell me. You got to answer first.
What was it again?
4 areas in your life you got to stay balanced.
Well, definitely home,
So
family.
family. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Health.
Yes.
Health is
Yeah. You work out still?
always.
I know.
Always.
I already
don't
knew
stop.
that.
You
We
got to
talk about it.
You have to take care of yourself.
100%.
You have to.
You don't want to be the overweight, whatever. Even though I'm not looking as good as I should be right now.
You look good. You look good.
Hey,
Your
I'm
hair
married.
looks
Thanks for
great.
the compliment.
Me too. But health is wealth, right? So
Yes.
it's not just about family. It's not just about business, but it's about you personally. And I think for me, going to the gym and putting in that time, and it's the days I don't want to go, I go, but I feel so much
Better
better.
when you're done.
And, it gets harder
Yeah.
in your 40s. It just does. And I used to say to my uncle, I'll be fine. Nothing's going to stop me. But 40s hits different. It just does.
Yeah.
And anybody who thinks it's not going to happen, it's going to happen. One day you're going to be like, he
Yeah.
was right.
And then 50 is creeping up on us.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm not there yet.
I know we're getting there. We're close enough.
we're
It's starting to
going
thi-
up.
I know.
We're
but-
going up the mountain.
So you got family, you got your health.
Yeah.
So working out, you also got work.
Yeah.
Then it could be God for some people,
Mhm.
but mental health. So when you work out,
Yeah.
I know you did MMA for quite a bit. There's probably a little bit of God in there for you, working out your problems throughout the day, taking it
Well-
out on somebody else.
Well, jujitsu training, whether it's weight training or jujitsu, yeah, you leave everything on the mats or you leave
Sure.
everything at the gym. And I struggled with anxiety and I struggled with bouts of depression.
Sure.
The
highs and the lows of this.
due to my upbringing and not understanding certain things. But you know what I did? I went to people that could help me with it.
Yeah.
And whether it's mental health or business or the gym,
Yeah.
there's people you can go to. You can come to me. I can show you the way. And
And I think most people think you can't be like that,
Yeah.
but all you got to do is ask.
you have to
It's
ask.
just that simple.
You have to seek the help and you have to ask.
Yeah.
And, I was never afraid to do that. Like, there was times I couldn't sit in a movie theater. I would walk out, couldn't be on the boardwalk. Like, it was so intense. I rushed myself to the hospital 4
Sure.
or 5 times. I'm carrying around something in my pocket because the doctor says it's work. Never even had to take it,
Yeah.
but just being in my pocket, helped me
Relax.
fight that. But then I went and I spoke to somebody and I learned what was happening. I learned about feelings, and it helped me grow.
Yeah.
So a lot of people get stuck in that
Our parents weren't talking
depression.
about feelings back then.
There was no feelings.
No.
You didn't say
No,
anything about
yeah,
feelings.
I'll give you something to cry about.
Yeah,
I had to
literally.
listen. You remember
Literally. But it changed my outlook. And I think, don't be afraid to seek the help and ask a question.
that. And I think more importantly, once you get the information's great. People go, knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And I say bullshit to that. Knowledge is potential power, just like a rubber band. If I hold that rubber band back, that's potential power.
Yeah.
You need to release it. You need to get going in one direction or another. Don't be afraid to make that mistake. You're going to skin your knee, get back on that bike, keep going. But consistent daily actions is what ends up getting you the watch, the cars, or the life that you're looking for.
Knowledge is power only if you have a plan to
Massive
use
action.
it, right?
Massive action.
All right, good stuff.
Great stuff.
All right.